There are moments in history when a monarch's greatest battle is not fought against political opponents, economic crises, or constitutional challenges. Sometimes, the greatest battle is fought behind palace walls, where the duty of a king collides with the heart of a father. According to this fictional story, that moment arrived when King Felipe realized Princess Leonor had quietly reached her limit. To the outside world, she appeared calm, disciplined, and confident. Every public appearance looked flawless. Every smile appeared effortless. Every speech seemed perfectly delivered. But behind those carefully managed moments, something very different was unfolding. The pressure surrounding Spain's future queen had grown heavier than anyone imagined. Every photograph became a headline. Every gesture was analyzed. Every expression inspired endless speculation. Every rumor spread across social media within minutes. For Leonor, there was no ordinary day. No private mistake. No chance to simply be a young woman. The fictional story begins after one particularly exhausting week. Leonor had completed several official engagements while continuing her demanding military responsibilities. Although she never complained publicly, palace staff noticed subtle changes. She spoke less. She smiled less often. She spent more evenings alone. One trusted palace advisor quietly approached King Felipe. "We believe the princess is carrying more than she is showing." Those words stayed with him. As king, Felipe understood public duty. As a father, he understood silent suffering. That night, according to this fictional narrative, he reviewed dozens of newspaper articles covering Leonor. Very few discussed her achievements. Most focused on rumors, speculation, body language, personal relationships, future controversies that existed only in imagination. He closed the final newspaper and reportedly whispered to himself, "This cannot continue." The next morning, an unexpected meeting was called. Not with politicians, not with ministers, but with the palace communications team. Every senior advisor attended. The atmosphere felt unusually tense. King Felipe entered carrying a folder. Inside were hundreds of headlines collected over several months. He placed them on the table without saying a word. After several silent seconds, he finally spoke. "Look carefully. This is what my daughter sees every morning." Nobody answered. There was nothing to say. The headlines spoke for themselves. Some exaggerated, others invented conflict. Many turned ordinary moments into sensational stories. According to this fictional account, Felipe then made a remarkable decision. From that day forward, palace communications would change completely. If criticism was unavoidable, if difficult questions had to be answered, if controversy emerged, he would answer first. He would become the public focus. Leonor would remain protected whenever possible. Some advisors immediately objected. "Your Majesty, the king must remain above these daily debates." Felipe calmly replied, "A father does not." Silence filled the room. It was a sentence nobody expected. But everyone understood. Weeks later, the opportunity to test that promise arrived. A routine royal event unexpectedly attracted enormous media attention. Journalists ignored the official purpose. Instead, they prepared personal questions aimed directly at Princess Leonor. Some planned to ask about rumors. Others intended to speculate about her future. Still others hoped for an emotional reaction that would dominate tomorrow's headlines. The palace knew what was coming. Security officials prepared carefully. Communications advisors discussed several possible strategies. Leonor insisted she would answer whatever came. "I've trained for pressure," she reportedly said in this fictional story. Felipe smiled gently. "No, I have." When the royal family appeared before the cameras, reporters immediately began shouting questions. "Princess Leonor, Princess, what do you say about?" Before anyone finished speaking, King Felipe stepped forward. Every camera turned toward him. Instead of allowing Leonor to become the center of another media storm, he began speaking about Spain's institutions, public service, education, and national unity. His calm, thoughtful remarks redirected the entire conversation. Minutes passed. Questions about Leonor disappeared. The story became the king's speech instead. Exactly as he intended. After the event ended, Leonor quietly walked beside her father. Neither spoke immediately. Eventually she asked, "You knew they were waiting for me?" Felipe nodded. "And you took every question?" Another nod. "But why?" His answer was simple. "Because you'll spend your entire life carrying the crown I can carry today." Those words stayed with Leonor long after the event ended. According to this fictional story, it marked a turning point in their relationship. She no longer saw only the king. She saw the father making difficult choices invisible to everyone else. Meanwhile, commentators began criticizing Felipe. Some claimed he controlled media appearances too carefully. Others argued he was becoming overly protective. Political commentators debated his strategy. Editorial writers questioned palace transparency. Felipe never responded. If criticism landed anywhere, he wanted it landing on him, not Leonor. Weeks became months. Whenever public pressure intensified, Felipe quietly positioned himself between Leonor and the growing media attention. Sometimes that meant extending press conferences. Sometimes it meant changing schedules. Sometimes it meant taking responsibility for unpopular decisions that had actually been recommended by advisors. Each time, Leonor noticed. Each time, she understood a little more about leadership. One evening they reportedly walked through the palace gardens together. No cameras, no officials, no speeches, only father and daughter. Leonor finally asked a question she had carried for months. "Doesn't it bother you, the criticism?" Felipe smiled. "It used to. What changed?" "You." She looked confused. He continued. "When you become a parent, your reputation becomes less important than your child's peace." For several moments neither spoke. The gardens were completely quiet. In that silence, Leonor realized something many future rulers never fully understand. Real leadership is often invisible. The greatest sacrifices rarely appear in history books. They happen quietly, without applause, without recognition, without anyone noticing. As this fictional narrative continues, Leonor gradually began developing her own approach to public life. She observed how her father remained composed during criticism, how he answered attacks without anger, how he absorbed pressure so others could continue serving. Those lessons became far more valuable than any formal education. Years later, according to the fictional story, a young palace employee asked Leonor what quality she admired most in her father. The employee expected an answer about diplomacy, or constitutional knowledge, or leadership. Instead, Leonor smiled. "He taught me that strength isn't standing in front of people. It's standing in front of the people you love." Those words quietly spread throughout the palace. Many employees reflected on them, because they had witnessed small moments the public never saw. A father slowing his pace so his daughter could breathe before entering a crowded room. A reassuring smile before a difficult ceremony. A simple hand on her shoulder moments before cameras began recording. Tiny gestures, invisible to the world, unforgettable to Leonor. The fictional story concludes years later during another major royal event. This time, Leonor stood confidently before hundreds of journalists. She answered difficult questions with calm confidence. She remained composed throughout. When the event ended, reporters praised her confidence. Many called it natural. Few understood where it came from. As father and daughter returned to the palace, Felipe quietly asked, "You didn't need my help today." Leonor smiled. "I know, but I needed it back then." Felipe simply nodded. Nothing more needed to be said. Because the greatest sacrifice had never been giving speeches. It had never been facing criticism. It had never been absorbing headlines. The greatest sacrifice was choosing, day after day, to let the world's attention fall upon himself so his daughter could slowly become the queen she was destined to be. And perhaps that is the quiet truth behind every great parent. The greatest acts of love are often the ones history never records. They happen without ceremony, without recognition, without applause, but they shape the future all the same. End.